Welcome to the Psychological Counseling 2 module. The course content for this module is PC20D2. My name is S. Dube and I'm going to be your tutor for this module. Let's look at the course content, meaning what it is that we're going to cover in this module, or what does this module contain. This module is going to look at the fundamentals of psychology of sex and ancient sexual cultures. This module also looks at adolescents and their sexual development, fundamentals of modern psychological counseling practices, ethics, codes and practice guidelines for counseling, modern HIV counseling interventions. That's a brief review on HIV counseling and testing, couples HIV counseling and testing, provider-initiated counseling and testing, prevention with positives, providing an HIV test result to the psychological effect, counseling guidelines for the Ministry of Health and Social Services, counseling needs for specific groups, children, sex workers, and rape victim survivors, and creating community awareness groups. Learning outcomes. The course aims to equip students with knowledge on the following: the counseling guidelines for the Ministry of Health and Social Services, fundamentals of psychology of sex in ancient sexual cultures and fundamentals of modern psychological counseling practices, the importance of adolescents and their sexual development in the era of HIV, the modern HIV counseling interventions, a brief review of HIV counseling and testing, couples HIV counseling and testing, provider-initiated counseling and testing, prevention with positives, the importance of ethical codes and practice in counseling, the psychological effect of an HIV test results on the individual, and information and skill on how to develop counseling programs for children, sex workers, rape victims or survivors, and how to create community awareness in public, private, and NGOs on care, support, and referral for counseling services. Introductory overview. This module is tailored for the second-year students and provides an overview of counseling guidelines of the Ministry of Health and Social Services on the context in which these counseling services are provided. It reviews the fundamentals of psychology of sex, in particular in the ancient cultures, and the fundamentals of modern psychological counseling practices. Some emphasis is placed on the adolescents and their sexual development and the risks involved for HIV. The ethical codes and practices are examined and reviewed. The 4 modern counseling approaches to HIV prevention is discussed in detail, and these include HIV counseling and testing, though only in brief as it is done in the first year. Provide-initiated counseling and testing, couples HIV counseling and testing, and prevention with positives. As part of HCT, students further examine the psychological effect of an HIV positive test result on the individual. If you test somebody and when you give them the result, if the result is reactive or it is positive, how do you handle the reaction to that result? The manual concludes by discussing the needs for specific groups, namely children, sex workers, rape victim survivors, and the importance of mobilization and public awareness on care, support, and referral services for counseling. Just some introductory remarks. The importance of psychological counseling in HIV is critical to reduce new infections and empower people with knowledge and skills to live with HIV. If you go back in history, you realize that before the introduction of counseling, a lot of people, we lost a number of people as a result of people taking their HIV positive results badly. But since the introduction of counseling, pre, post, and ongoing counseling, we have seen a remarkable decrease. And also we have seen a lot of gains on how people are able to actually accept their results and also continue to live positively while it's contributing significantly to the development of their country. Counseling contributes greatly to the comprehensive delivery of care. Discussing the fundamentals of counseling in the ancient sexual cultures gives a background to the current day behavior patterns and the risks involved for adolescents. Examining the modern counseling approaches is out of most importance to let students experience these developments made in addressing the multifaceted problems faced with living with HIV. Counseling in HIV can no longer only work with individuals on a voluntary basis. Therefore, the approach of counseling initiated by providers in the healthcare settings, counseling couples, and involving people living with HIV in the designing of approaches towards improved action. While these approaches may sound new and indeed may not have taken root in Africa, it requires adoption by healthcare providers, and communities should be informed so as to utilize services more effectively. The need to develop an understanding of these issues involving counseling children, sex workers, rape victim survivors are important, and therefore the importance of examining these issues in more detail. Community mobilization for counseling still remains an aspect of great concern. Let's look at the assignments. Right, so you've got your assignment 1 there. Psychological changes, including sexual urges experienced by adolescents, increase their risks for HIV infection. Discuss. So adolescents, as we have experienced earlier, or the young people, we have seen that currently there is a worrying trend that there's an increase in the HIV infection rate among young people. And some of these changes that are happening in their bodies are likely to create those areas of vulnerability which may cause infection. So discuss around that aspect. Assignment 2, receiving an HIV positive result is a life-changing event. Elaborate on the psychological effect it may have on an individual and discuss the specific interventions required during the counseling session. So it requires you to read a lot more about the pre, the post, and also the people's reaction when they get their results. Assignment 3, review the counseling guidelines of the Ministry of Health and Social Services, outline and discuss the main components. Okay, what are the main components? What are the key issues that are highlighted in those counseling guidelines in facilitating the quality of life of this person whom you are dealing with? And assignment 4, counseling for HIV prevention requires multiple prevention interventions to reduce new infections and empower communities. Discuss. So you realize that there is nothing like one primed solution. In order for us to fight and mitigate the impact of HIV and AIDS, we need to fight from different fronts. And what are some of these interventions, especially at community level? We have been very bad or very poor at community level in intervening in terms of HIV. So format a discussion around that. And like I've said in other slides, you are encouraged very strongly to read your manual, consult tutorials, there's prescribed reading, and respond or write up your assignments as given or indicated in your tutorials. I look forward to engaging with you further, and also I wish you a very exciting journey as you embark on this very wonderful program. I thank you.